Without further ado, we want to go into our next session, Championing the Customer and Customer Service Automation. This is a panel that's being led by PolyAI COO Zhang, with Dan Eddy, Brian Jeppesen, and Kurt Wilson. And after that, we'll go into lunch.
Thank you, Damon. Hi, everyone. So my name is Zhang, and I am the Chief Operating Officer here at PolyAI. I'm really excited today to be the moderator on today's panel, which is championing the customer in customer service automation with our fantastic panelists today. So I'm just going to say a few words to set the scene. So at PolyAI, we say that our voice assistants are customer-led, right? And if you click on our website, our banner says, let your customers lead the conversation. So what does that mean? On one hand, a customer-led conversation literally means that we build voice assistants that understand the customer no matter what they say. And we take that conversation turn by turn and solve their problem, right? And that is kind of the quality standard that we stand behind. On the other hand, when we say that we're customer-led, it also implicitly acknowledges that when a lot of contact center leaders and customer experience leaders are considering customer service automation, that they're weighing on one hand the customer experience and on the other hand efficiency, right? And so when we're saying that we're customer led, we're saying, hey, we want to do better than that. All of our panelists today are customer experience leaders who've undertaken customer service automation projects and have the customer on top of their mind. And I'd love for you to share your experiences with us today. And if you could introduce yourselves before you share your first question, your answer for the first question today, which is, what are you all doing to championing the customer in the contact center, and what does putting the customer first mean to you? Can we have Dan and then Kurt and then Brian, please? Dan, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, thanks, Jan. Dan Eddy, Customer Services Director at Simplyhealth. So we offer health and dental plans between Simplyhealth and Dentplan. And so customers and patients are incredibly important to us. And we don't want to keep them waiting when they are contacting us, or indeed, more importantly, when the moment of truth comes to claim. So, the speed at which we answer the phone, the speed at which we process the claim, pay the claim, and generally continue to engage our customers is incredibly important. And when we look at the UK at the moment and the kind of healthcare environment, and unfortunately the NHS is crumbling around us, and that doesn't seem to be recovering at any great pace, and it's probably doubtful that it will. Then there is a need for healthcare provision to support the NHS, and that's where Simplyhealth and its purpose-led mission is to be there for working Britain to give access to healthcare to as many people as we possibly can. And so therefore, growth at scale is incredibly important, and we continue to marshal our service performance to stand out from the crowd and be the option that the UK population chooses for their healthcare provision.
Thanks, Dan. Kurt?
Yeah, hi. My name is Kurt Wilson. I'm the head of service operations at Hopper. So your general question is was about how we want to leverage customer service moving forward, right? More or less. We work in the travel industry. What we see a lot is customers calling in when there are situations where time is of the essence. So one of the key things that we do at Hopper, or we're trying to do at Hopper, is always take the customer in mind and what's more important to anyone but time. So we want to get down to the solution as quickly as we can. PolyAI is helping us with this upfront with a lot of smaller requests. We obviously want to be an industry leader in this space. There's a lot of anxiety around travel. People don't understand it. And when they call you, they just want an answer as quickly as possible. And we try to do that in the most empathetic way possible, and try to get the customer that resolution as quickly as we can.
Thanks, Kurt. Brian?
Brian Jeppesen, Director of Contact Centers for Landry's, Golden Nugget Hotels, Casinos. when it comes to customer service, you talk about customer service. I think the first thing you got to do is answer the phone, and that's the first rule in having a good experience. And we were challenged coming out of COVID with trying to hire people, and high abandons, and it was extremely challenging for us to answer the phones, and that's when we reached out. We've been partners now for a little over 2.5 years now. So, but and I know people. You hear surveys of people saying that they think that 70% of the people want to speak to a live person and rather than speak to a robot or voice assistant because they've had bad experiences with it. But I always say, well, 100% of the people just want their issue taken care of as quickly as possible and effortlessly as possible. So we had to look at this as how do I make it easy for my customers to do business with me, and waiting on hold for 30, 40, 50 minutes just to get a simple request taken care of was just not good experience. And so we've had some incredible successes with what Poly has done for us to help us be able to take care of customers' issues quickly, efficiently, effectively, and allow my agents to be able to focus more on driving revenue and making reservations. So that's where we started.
Thanks, Brian. So, Brian, you mentioned COVID, right? And COVID obviously was a very challenging time for the hospitality industry. I wanted to ask the rest of the panel, Dan and Kurt. Obviously, to improve customer service, to champion the customer, hiring more agents is always an arrow in your quiver. And what was the catalyst event for you to consider service automation, right, as an act of improving customer service?
Yeah, so there was actually a big shift within Hopper. Previously, customers could only call through if they had a live booking, right? But that also left other customers unable to access customer service. So we know that there were a lot of low-level questions that we wouldn't necessarily want to route to an agent, because we need those agents to be focusing on things like flight changes. There are so many disruptions in the travel industry, and some of them are very complex. So how do we make sure that our agents are dealing with the most complex, most time-sensitive issues, but allow customers to still access customer service in a way where they can still get the information that they require to move forward? And PolyAI really fit that very cleanly, because there are a lot of questions that people have that don't require a huge amount of expertise to fix. Questions about payment, questions about credits, so on and so forth. So PolyAI really fit that mold to help guard. It allowed us to open up to more people the customer service experience without necessarily needing to leverage very highly skilled agents to be able to get that done.
Thank you, Kurt. Dan?
Yeah, I suppose whenever you're thinking about AI or automation, it's kind of what problem are you trying to solve? And similar to what Kurt and Brian have mentioned, go back 12 months, we were, I suppose, not in the place where we were picking the phone up quick enough, we were answering emails quick enough, and recruitment is a challenge, I think, in any country, right? So it's kind of what problem are you trying to solve? And the problem we were trying to get to was speed of answer and resolution, as Kurt has mentioned, to some of the easier type questions. Our healthcare book has got a lot of older customers who still claim by paper, and will remain so under the kind of consumer duty banner. We'll have to serve them in the way that they need to, because they're digitally vulnerable. And so therefore, when they ring up and say, please can I have a claim form, that's something that's clearly we're able to automate, right? And send the claim form. And Poly was tremendous at picking up those types of calls and resolving them there and then. Now that's meant that our service levels in terms of being able to pick the phone up really quickly are immediate because Poly's answering. But secondly, the human expertise is sat behind dealing with more complex, more value-adding content, and that's meant that the whole experience has vastly improved. And in the 12 months that we've had Poly, our customer satisfaction has gone up by 15 points. And our Trustpilot scores have got vastly better. and it's helped to make sure that our core experience, our claims, has never been better, because we've been able to use our resource to be multi-skilled, and really, at the moment of truth of claiming, be there to make sure that the processing and the payment of the claim has been as quick as it can be. And now we are processing and paying claims to 52% of our customers within 24 hours, which is fantastic. And we've seen our satisfaction for online claiming up at 93%, very satisfied as a result. So Poly's not just played a part at the front end, it's played a part in the whole kind of ecosystem of us serving customers when they really need us. So it's been a tremendous benefit for us and our customers.
Well, Dan, as you might know, we're also a customer of Simplyhealth and Dan Plan, and I just filed a claim on Sunday night for a routine checkup, and I just got my check last night, and that was the fastest claim that I've ever seen being processed. So thank you for that. Obviously the value of customer service automation is very clear if it works, right? And I think a lot of the anxiety that CX leaders have is, well, automation, I've experienced this as a customer. How's it going to work? Is it going to frustrate my customers? So a panel, maybe starting with you, Brian. So what was your impression of customer service automation, right? Voice automation before you started with PolyAI, and what do you know now that's different?
Well, I think as most people that have had bad experiences, calling in, and we heard all those recordings in the beginning, right? That Nicola put out there, and unfortunately they were they were, most of them were mine, right? So I've heard all those things, and we've all experienced bad experiences with bad ones. So it was a challenge going in, and whether do we go to AI or do we hire agents? Well, we couldn't hire agents. There were no agents to hire. So AI wasn't replacing anybody. It was just doing the job of the people that didn't want to work. So my biggest concern as I went into this was it has to be a good experience. It wasn't about saving money. It wasn't about a lot of those things. It was my customers are not getting the calls answered, and we need to answer those phone calls. So it's got to be a good experience. I don't want people to go through this robotic hell back and forth. And so when we went to when you guys showed up, and we had some experiences. Some of you have heard our experience with listening to you giving us a voice assistant for my Saltgrass Steakhouse that was very Texan. That was an awesome experience. And at that point, I realized, okay, this is the experience I want my customers to have. And I gave you 10 recordings of my best agent, and you gave me a voice that sounded just like my best agent. And I said, that's the experience I want my customers to have. And that's why that was so much different. It wasn't robotic. I listened to, I looked at a lot of different companies out there who had solutions, but they all sounded the same robotic voice. And that's not what I wanted my customers to have. And you gave me something completely different, which was a great experience.
Well, Brian, I remember when you asked for a Texan voice, we sent you back a voice that started with "Howdy, neighbor," and you're like, "Okay, so please dial it back a little bit, right?" So we got the right level of Texan eventually.
Yeah.
So, Kurt, what about you? Expectation versus reality?
Well, I can tell you something. Like I've experimented and dabbled in different AIs and bots and things over time. So I wasn't sure how good it was going to be. All right, when we launched with PolyAI, I expected, you go through all the sales process with PolyAI, and they show you all the great stuff, and you're like, but how is it actually going to turn out, right? When we went live and we started listening to calls, it was a night and day difference for me from what I've seen in the past. Like the first call that we listened to was absolutely flawless and exactly the way we wanted to go. I think basically one of the things that I think we learned at Hopper, though, is because we weren't sure exactly what we were opening up to the broader population, we weren't 100% sure what kind of call mix we were going to get, right? Because we had some of our customers unable to get through because they did not have a booking. So now that we opened it up, one of the large things we didn't know was what do we tell PolyAI needs to be handled in this space, right? So we had to learn really quickly, and I mean, I'm really impressed with the speed and the way which PolyAI has worked with us to kind of address some of the bigger buckets. But I would just say, like, if I could do anything differently today, it'd be like, how do I get a temperature check of what we're building the AI for? But other than that, I mean, again, working with chatbots in the past and working with various other bots, like, this is night and day difference for me.
Well, Kurt, our deployment team's going to be really happy. Well, they're very happy hearing that. And Dan, what about you? What was different between before you started and when you started working with voice automation?
So listen, I think I look about as old as Kurt and Brian, if I can not be too disrespectful. So I think we've all been round quite a bit in the operational sense, and like Kurt mentioned, there's some horror shows out there, right? And I think we may have experienced those during our time when you're ringing up some big companies trying to find out what your energy bill is or whatever, right? There's some horror shows. So. I'll use Kurt's language. It is night and day, right? The difference Poly has brought to the conversational landscape. And I think it's game changing. And I think our customers tell us that because they get the service, as Brian alluded to. You want a standard of service that's right up with the one you provide as a human. And Poly can do that. And its ability to converse accurately and comprehensively with our customers has been proven. So, this is a fantastic step forward. What I'm looking forward to now is kind of the use of generative AI within Poly. I'm delighted to tell you, Jan, that last week we were the first company in the world that uses Salesforce to send a generative knowledge GPT-driven email, and that went fantastically well. And so we're on a generative journey now. And I know, talking to those within Poly, that the ability to use generative AI is not too far down the track as we continue to automate and serve more of our customer bases through the help and support of both Poly and Salesforce.
Yeah, well, we'll have some exciting announcements regarding generative AI at the end of our event today. Dan, I think Kurt mentioned, right. So in the process of deploying the voice assistant, obviously now all of you are veterans are working with voice AI, but there's always things that you could have done maybe if you retrospectively a little bit differently, right? So what was that for you? Now sitting back, looking at 12 months ago when we went live, what would you have done differently?
So we had an 8-week proof of concept. And I've got to say, I iterate what Kurt said around the support and the agile nature and the ability for Poly to, at a moment's notice, work with you to change the language or the context of what's being said, or indeed add a flow that isn't there. It's just so quick. And only recently, as last week, we did that, where we were articulating the answer to one set of letters we were sending out, but we'd missed a few other letters, and very quickly we were able to adapt and change, and suddenly the resolution rate was back up another 3% as a result. So it's the agile nature, and the team that we've worked with, the likes of Tory Centre, have been absolutely brilliant. I can't speak highly enough of the team that we've had with us. So look, if I was looking back at that 8-week first deployment cycle, I'd go faster. Yeah, is the honest truth, right? Because the quality of what we saw from day one was great, and instead of going from 10 to 15 to 25 to 50 to eventually 100% after 8 weeks, I'd have gone faster. Is the honest truth. That would be my learning, because I didn't know and I didn't understand the agile speed at which you can change and maneuver to continue to improve the success of how Poly serves your customers. So it's a bit of a positive, constructive bit of feedback rather than kind of a negative one. But that's what I do differently.
Well, Tori and team will be very happy to hear that. Kurt, anything to add from your insights earlier? What would you do differently now?
So yeah, that's a great question. The I honestly wish I had the capacity to just understand the minds of the customers and what they would be calling for. And to be perfectly frank, like I don't think there's much that we could have done, because by opening up the phone lines, we would have just had to hire more agents to manage these pieces. I think the kind of the middle ground for us was, because we weren't sure what we were going to get. We built into the flow with PolyAI is, if the flows that we built weren't suiting the needs of the customer, we still routed those through to the agent so that we could collect that data and then build flows based on that, so that we could start containing a lot of those pieces. And I mean, this is not nothing Poly AI could do. I mean, it was squarely on us. Um, but we did find a really good middle ground to be able to quickly collect that information, and then work with Poly AI to be able to kind of shore up some of the gaps, and really address the spaces that we wanted automated.
Thanks, Kurt. A lot of our customers and prospects always ask us how do we begin, right? And we
Yeah.
always tell them that even if you don't, even if you're just starting out on your automation path, having a bot that answers every phone with "How can I help?" and then collecting
Yeah.
that data of what the customer is telling you is going to help you draw out an automation roadmap, right? And you only need a few weeks of data to be able to see what you can automate. So that's a great point.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing that really helped us with too is just making sure the call ends up in the right place, right? It's a huge part of it, right? Because customers
Yep.
pound out of the IVR if you give them choices, and then they end up in the wrong department, and then they have to get transferred. Like Poly really takes a lot of that out, and that
Yep.
really also helped the data collection.
Yeah, and that's a lot of costs that we're taking out from misroutes as well. Brian, anything you would have done differently?
Yeah, we, as we started, and I think, as Nicola mentioned in the very beginning, we were your first U.S. Client, and I was very impressed with the fact that we went live from the time that we started. We went live with a very simple bot that just transferred calls and answered a few frequently asked questions. Um, that we went live in 4 weeks, and it was extreme. And I would say a lot of that 4 week delay was probably on our side from a technology standpoint. But I, after coming out of the pandemic, like I said, I was taking 40,000 more calls from one of my properties that I didn't handle before, and we couldn't handle these very simple calls. And day one, when it went live, I was hoping for about 50% containment rate, and day one it handled well over 80% of those calls, and it just totally blew me away and said, "Whoa, this is awesome." And so from that point, I said, "Well, if it can do this," and we learned a lot along the same way, Kurt. Like I said, taking that data, understanding the intents, and making it even better and fine tuning it along the way was very critical for us. But then going from there and saying, "What else can we do with this?" Right now, we can do the simple stuff. Can we do something? My customers can make reservations online. Why can't I teach a voice assistant to make the reservation for them online? So then we got this that process and have really expanded. And now it handles a significant portion of all of my calls, and has been a great support.
Thank you, Brian. Something that we always advocate for is a crawl, walk, run type of a deployment rhythm, right? Where we start with something that's simple, that solves some acute pain points. You see the system working, and you build internal, momentum, right, for supporting the technology, supporting the deployment, and then we go towards higher value, more complex use cases. And so, Brian, I want to just start you off on the last question of the day, which is that we've got a lot of customers and prospects, right, sitting here today, and a lot of people are on the fence about whether they want to make that commitment to AI, make that commitment to automation. So, what do you have to say to them, right? How do you balance, champion the customer and cost efficiencies in deploying customer service automation?
Yeah. So I mean, like I've said from the beginning, you know, you, your customers you need to get the phones answered. So if you're struggling, I guess you need to look at why would you want to go this route in the first place? Most of people are saying, okay, I can't hire people. It's to hire people. You have to, you're seeing increases in pay that are impacting everybody. You're seeing, and if you decide you want to go to outsource it, they're having the same challenges as you're having internally. And it was just for me to be able to look at a voice assistant and to see what it can do, that it comes to work every day. It doesn't get sick. It doesn't get COVID. It doesn't, it's 100% utilization. So, you're not paying for unutilized time. It's funny. One of my properties, one of my hotels, nominated, it made over 3,000 reservations 1 month, answered, like 12,000 calls. And the hotel nominated it for voice or for employee of the month. So because it was, it did such a great job. So, but that's what it is, So if you're just starting out, look at the low hanging fruit, find things that can make a quick change and a quick impact. If you're struggling to hire people, it's helping with my attrition, because most of your attrition is in that bottom 25% that you keep churning over and over and over again. And now I've replaced most of that with a voice assistant. So it's really seen my attrition go down too. So there are a lot of great benefits, both from a cost perspective. More than anything, it's just the experience that my customers now get their call answered immediately. 100% of those calls answered immediately, directed where it needs to go, or answered their questions and taken care of them.
Well, thank you, Brian. Kurt?
Yeah, I don't think cost efficiency and customer experience are necessarily opposed to each other, honestly. Like, people usually call customer service when something's broken, right? No one's calling you because they want to tell you you're doing a great job. So I think that, like, with the automation, what you can do is very clearly cut down to the issues that need a lot of attention versus to those that don't need a lot of attention. And what I mean by that is more around technical skill rather than on just, these customers don't matter, because they do. But what PolyAI does for us in this space is it frees up our high-skilled agents to deal with critical problems, to deal with customers that are very anxious about something. Like, they could be stranded in Paris trying to get a flight out. We need to get that to an agent right away. But if that agent's caught on a call about, they have a question about seats, as an example, that's a lower question, or a question about funds that have been pre-authorized on a credit card. That's all information that the AI can handle for us, therefore freeing up that high-skilled agent to help that customer solve that problem. Both customers could be calling at the same time. They both get their answers. They're both really satisfied with the output. And I think that this is just something that PolyAI opens the door for us, right?
Yep.
So I think that we get the efficiency, we get the speed, and then because we're able to get the calls to the place where they need to be, we also get the customer satisfaction out of it.
Finding the right use cases, right? To use AI so that your agents can do more, even more.
Exactly.
Right? That's great. Dan?
Yeah, look, I don't want to repeat what the others have said, but clearly the service standard and the speed and efficiency, everything that Brian and Kurt have said are obviously top of the four things that I've got anyway, or part of the four things that I've got. Yeah. The second thing is Poly is able to, so we're sort of talking to prospects or people who are thinking of doing this, right? So the CX and service supply is I think obvious, but the quality of what you do is key. But then there's the brand, okay, and how Poly can represent your brand, and the choices that and the team have been involved in the choices that we've chosen as voices to represent Simplyhealth and Denplan. And what was brilliant was with our latest deployment in Denplan is that with the voice recorder, or the person who was being recorded, was able to send a message to the team to say, hi, I'm Tom. I'm going to be part of your Denplan team, and I'm looking forward to working with you. So, that kind of agent experience of having Polly or Tom here working with me to solve customer problems, patient problems, was really great. And that's not, where else do you get that from a kind of conversational component? Then I think the other thing is exec sponsorship, right? So, selling this, if you like, as a return on investment is easy, but then hearing the quality of the experience that your customers or patients get, I think that's really great. And, as soon as I put this in front of my CEO, he was like, wow, this is brilliant. How fast can we get it in and get it going, right? So I think that's the other part, is it doesn't take a lot to influence the executive when they can see the capabilities and qualities of Poly. And finally, and I think, it is the Poly team. I come back to that, right? The people who you work with and how this game-changing technology is deployed and the agile way in which it's able to be iteratively improved is just fantastic. So it's a fully rounded solution for me, and it's a bit of a, if I may use an English phrase, a bit of a no-brainer in this landscape, right? Let's get on board with PolyAI.
Well, thank you, Dan. A heartfelt thanks from our team to you, Dan, Kurt, and Brian, for your partnership and your insights today. Right, coming up, I have the pleasure of introducing our lunch break.